not the Alberta Prosperity Project. We're the Lavigne Show. We are a third-party advertiser when it comes to Elections Alberta, when it comes to the independence petition. But we are not here to, I'm not here to provide you any advertising or promotion about the independence referendum. I'm here to present some speakers to you, and 4 of them actually. How many of you have actually seen the Lavigne Show? Wow, that's pretty cool. The rest of you, there's some cards in the back, you can check it out. Everybody that you see here, plus many, many others have been on the show for an interview at one point or time, including Mitch Sylvester, Jeffrey Rath, Dennis Modry, and many, many more. So if you're looking for more information, that'd be a good place to get started. Tonight, I always want to make sure that we all understand that there's only 2 bathrooms, male and female. Apologies if you're looking for anything else there. And I want to give a big thank you to the Westerner for hosting this. It's actually very difficult to get venues for these conversations. They'll say, yeah, okay, what are you doing? And then when you tell them, they're like, too political. No, thank you. We don't want the trouble. And sometimes, if you're really unlucky, they'll book you and then cancel you right before. We've had that happen before. So thank you to the Westerner for doing that and for working out the water situation. I don't know if you guys know, but there was a Watergate situation. It's all been addressed now. So I do want to let you all know that if you have your cameras out, you can film, you can take pictures, go ahead and post, live stream if you want, the entire thing. Totally be our pleasure. Try and tag us or the speaker and give us your comments. We'd love your feedback at the end as well. The format's going to be, there's going to be 4 speakers, about 15 minutes each. We'll take a quick little break, stretch your legs, grab some water, and go to one of the 2 bathrooms. You can do that. And then we'll get into the Q&A. So make sure you have your questions ready. Please don't interrupt the speakers with questions. We'll be happy to take them at the end. And we'll stay as long as we can in order to get to all of them. Well, who's ready to get started? Our first speaker is an amazing speaker. The first time I saw her was up in Stony Plain, Spruce Grove area, where she was speaking about her life as a farm girl and why she got involved in the independence movement with the Alberta Prosperity Project. She's a grassroots, real down-to-earth person, and she's got a lot of wisdom to share. And I'm really, really pleased and honored that she said yes to come to this conversation with you all tonight. So Tanya Clemens, thank you very much for being here. Needed.
Yep, thank you. That's perfect. Thanks so much for hosting this event, first of all, too, and doing these series of tours and creating that space where we can actually gather together, regardless if you're on board already or if you're just coming with questions or maybe you're coming with opposition, but creating that space where we can have some civil discourse and calm civil dialogue, because sometimes we are missing that a little bit. So I appreciate people that put in the efforts to create that space for us. As Jason said, I'm here tonight not as a constitutional lawyer or a politician or an economist, but as a farmer, a teacher, and a mom. And I'm here as someone who loves this land with absolutely everything I've got. This is my Alberta flag right here. I tried to just make sure I connected it so it wouldn't fall over at all. And this is the one that I look at and think of the thousands and thousands of people and the decades and decades of effort that have brought us here today. All the work, all the courage, all the conversations that led us to this moment, signing a petition to force a referendum on Alberta independence and delivering us this hope. This is the flag that I fly on the top of my combine, and every morning this past harvest, I would walk across the field and I saw this flag waving above the cab of my combine, and I saw my family working together, and one would be driving combine, and one would be hauling a load in the grain cart, and another would be taking the semi out of the field. And in those quiet moments, that's where I felt peace. I wasn't thinking about Ottawa. I wasn't thinking about politics. I was thinking about the land, the sky, the work before us, and the people that I love that were out in that field. And that's what freedom feels like to me in my little corner of Alberta. And maybe that's why this matters so much to me, because when I looked out at that field, and I see this flag, I don't just see my farm. I see the Canada that I was raised in, the Canada I believed existed, a place where if you worked hard, you could build something, a place where your effort meant something, a place where decisions were made close to home, not handed down from far, far away. And I still believe in that, even though that freedom feels more fragile than ever. And I believe we can still protect it. And we have this opportunity right here to do so in this part of Canada called Alberta. So tonight, I'm not here to tell you what to think. I have my opinions and my beliefs. I'm not even here to necessarily convince you of anything, but I'm here to offer you a few honest questions, the ones that I've had to sit with and resonate with me myself, because an independence referendum is coming. And when you walk into that voting poll on October 19th, 2026, and you're about to check that box on your ballot, I want you to fully understand the significance of placing that X. I hope that we all pause and understand the importance of that moment in time and the opportunity that you have in front of you simply by placing an X on a piece of paper. An opportunity that may never present itself ever again. So I hope you spend a moment in the reverence of answering the most important question that Albertans will likely ever face. So here are my 5 questions to you, and that I believe every Albertan should ask themselves in anticipation of a referendum on independence. Number 1, when you look honestly at Alberta today, are we better off than we were a generation ago? Not just in how we feel, but in opportunity, affordability, and confidence in the future. And will our next generation be better off than us? Because I see that housing costs have exploded, energy bills are higher, young families are stretched very thin, and you feel it every time you go to fill up your tank, especially now, or walk through the grocery store. And yet, we continue to send $14 billion in transfer payments to Quebec each year. This transfer of wealth is not new. From the very beginning, Alberta was never meant to be equal. In 1904, before we were even officially a province, Clifford Sifton, who was the federal minister responsible for bringing Alberta into Confederation, said it openly, and this is his quote, "We desire that the great trade and wealth of the prairies shall go to enrich our people in the East, to build up our factories and our places of work, and in every legitimate way contribute to our prosperity." That wasn't about Alberta's prosperity. That was about using Alberta as a colony to fund Ontario and Quebec. Second question for you. At the end of the day, who should decide Alberta's future? Ottawa or the people who live here? Who controls our resources? Who sets our priorities? And then who has to bear the consequences of the decisions that are being made? Because right now, policies written thousands of kilometers away are shaping how we heat our homes, fuel our vehicles, run our farms, and operate our businesses. Albertans elect provincial governments, and Ottawa overrides them. We vote for federal parties, and Ottawa still wins. And history shows that this tension and this dynamic is not new. Decade after decade, that tension has grown. Probably one of the biggest examples of that was in 1980, when Marc Lalonde, who was Pierre Trudeau's energy minister, launched the National Energy Program, quite popular out west. He admitted their plan was to stop Alberta from becoming the economic powerhouse of the country. And his words exactly were, "We couldn't let Alberta become the center of economic power in Canada." So think about that. Even back in the 80s, Ottawa saw Alberta rising and deliberately cut us down. And they've kept cutting. Third question, if Alberta consistently gives more than it receives, how long is that sustainable? That's not just resentment, that's actual math. And the scale of that financial impact is larger than most people realize. Since 1961, Alberta has sent over $800 billion more to Ottawa than we've ever received back in the forms of any kinds of services. We've overpaid, and 2 out of every 3 of those dollars goes straight to Quebec. Every single year, we lose between 20 and 28 billion, and now the estimates are up to as high as $40 billion a year. And that's about $6,000 per Albertan, or for an average family of 4, $24,000 that is being sent away to Ottawa that we are receiving nothing back for. Money that's gone and money that never returns. Ottawa's blocked pipelines, they've killed investment, we've lost billions and billions in projects, Ottawa's refusal to let us sell our own oil and gas actually costs us about $26.5 billion every single year. So when you start looking at the numbers and what could that mean if it stayed here instead of being sent away or diminished altogether, the numbers become very hard to ignore. Independent projections show that Alberta could, even after replacing all the federal programs and services, run a significant annual surplus of $20 to $40 billion a year. That's not a small adjustment. That's a completely different financial position from where we are right now. That would allow us to quickly pay off our provincial debt and to also grow a heritage fund, much like Norway's oil fund, that interest alone could one day largely fund most of Alberta, providing that stability and certainty. Fourth question, and this is the one that weighs on me the most. What happens if we do nothing? What if we listen to the other side, to the Forever Canada, and we just do nothing? We just coast along like we are. Because to me, standing still is still a decision that you're making. And every decision has consequences. And doing nothing doesn't preserve Alberta. It allows it to slowly be replaced. Now, some will ask, can't we just fix this from within Canada? Can't we negotiate a better deal? Let's give our provincial government just one more crack at this. Well, we have been trying for over a century, and time after time, Ottawa has slammed the door in our faces. We talked about 1980s when we had the National Energy Program and how devastating that was to the West. Alberta's future was basically lost at that time and was deliberately stifled, which made it even worse. Then in 1987 and 1992, we had the Meech Lake and the Charlottetown Accords. Both were constitutional reform attempts and both failed. And here's why. Because to open the Canadian Constitution, you need to clear 4 impossible barriers. The first one is you need approval of 7 of the 10 provinces representing more than 50% of the population. Well, Quebec and Ontario have over 60% of the population right there. So unless you can get one of them on board, you can't pass the first hurdle. Second hurdle is you need a majority vote in the House of Commons. Third hurdle is you need a majority vote in the Senate. And then the fourth hurdle is the real killer, because Quebec has a de facto veto vote. And they didn't even sign the 1982 Constitution. So let's be honest, the chance of changing the Constitution from within Confederation is 0. Then we moved to the 1990s. We had the Reform Party, and that was born out of Western frustration, and it called for Senate reform and decentralization. So Ottawa basically ignored them. In 2001, we had the Firewall Letter, where a few very prominent Albertans demanded that Alberta be in control of our pensions, our policing, and our taxation. Does that sound kind of familiar? Because 25 years later, we are still asking for the exact same things. In 2019, we had the Fair Deal panel, and once again, Albertans asked for fairness, and Ottawa's answer, more centralization. In 2021, we had the equalization referendum. 62% of Albertans voted to end equalization. But knowing that we can't actually open up the Constitution to make that happen, Ottawa just probably shrugged, laughed at us, and moved on. Every single time Alberta has tried to reform this federation, we've been blocked, mocked, or punished. And the system continues to work exactly as it was designed. And that's why this moment matters more than maybe anything we've ever faced before, because this isn't just another conversation. It's not just another panel touring the province or a report or an election promise. This is the first real opportunity in our lifetime to force the question, to put it directly in the hands of Albertans. This phase right now matters. So sign the petition, have those conversations, and show up like you are doing. And the fifth question, what kind of Alberta do we want to leave behind? For our children, for our grandchildren, for the people who will farm this land and build businesses and raise families here long after we're gone. What do we want that to look like? Because we don't just wake up one day and lose our freedom. We wake up one day and we realize we stopped protecting it. So what are we leaving behind? Are we leaving behind an Alberta that is more dependent or more self-determined? And when we ask that question honestly, it brings us face to face with something deeper than policy. It brings us face to face with courage. And I think that's actually where this whole conversation lies. If there's one thing Albertans understand, it's courage. This province was not built by people who waited until everything felt certain and they had answers for every question. It was built by people who looked out at this vast open land, long winters, a heck of a lot of work and a lot of unknowns, and decided anyway, I think I can build a life here. Not because it was guaranteed, but because they believed it was worth trying. Now, I know one part of this independence movement is that people are thinking it's very overwhelming. It's very uncertain. It feels scary. But here's what I've come to believe. The certainty of where Canada is headed is far scarier to me than any uncertainty of building a new nation. So, I think it's important to understand what dependence actually is and what it isn't. It's not a sudden breakdown where everything changes overnight. The airports don't land their planes and nothing moves. Telecommunications don't get shut down. It's not an apocalypse. It's a process. It starts with a referendum, a clear question, and then a mandate from Albertans. That leads to negotiations around things like trade, currency, pensions, borders. But during that time, those systems continue operating while those agreements are worked out. We don't need to recreate the wheel. We have systems in place that are working, and they will just be transferred over to ownership of Alberta. In many cases, it's not about rebuilding from scratch. It's just about taking that responsibility that already exists and shifting it to Albertans. We already run our healthcare. We have our education system, our natural resource development. We collect taxes. We regulate industries. We build infrastructure. The question isn't whether Alberta could function. It already does. The question is whether we want full control over it and have the courage to actually step into that prosperous, sovereign future. So before we leave tonight, I just want to run through those questions one more time. Are we actually better off than we were a generation ago? Who should decide Alberta's future? How long can an unsustainable system last? What happens if we do nothing? And the fifth one, what kind of Alberta do we want to pass on? You don't have to answer those questions tonight, but one day soon, likely by October 19th, 2026, I hope you will, and I hope you will choose courage over complacency, hope over fear, and self-determination over surrender. This province, my farm, your businesses, our communities were built by people who believed they could, and we still can. So please take this opportunity, and may Alberta forever be strong and free. Thank you.
That was a great way to start, wasn't it? Sorry, I got to lean forward a bit here. Do we have any canvassers in the room right now? Can you stand up for me, please? You guys are part of the process. You guys are hitting the streets. You're knocking on the doors. You're at the corners. You're waving your flag, and you're taking signatures. And sometimes you take a little bit of heat. Have any of you taken a little bit of heat so far? Our next guy has. He certainly has. There's some video of it too. So Marty, if you're on X and you check him out, he is an engineer. He's a no BS type of guy. He brings the facts. And if you want to go to toe with him, you better bring your receipts, because he's definitely going to fact check you for sure. And he's had to deal with this. He's been setting up and he's taking his big brain and he's going to set it up in locations, seeing how it works, move around, put other people in there and do it and rinse and repeat. He's got over, 600 signatures now, personally? So he's working really hard. He's working very hard for you all. So without further ado, Marty, up north.
Okay, I'll use the mic. I don't like using mics. I don't have a prepared speech. I just like to tell stories. So I'll tell you my story. I'll tell you why I became a separatist. But just to follow up on what Jason said, right? So I'm a little bit tan right now, and some people have asked me that, like, are you just coming back from a vacation? I'm like, no. This is what happens when you sit on the side of the road for 25 days out of the last 40 and collect signatures in the Alberta weather. Like, I mean, the wind, the snow, the cold, the heat, whatever, right? And you can, pass this around. This is my sheet that I usually put. This is the envelope that I put my my completed signatures in, right? And you can see the score, the tally on there. And me and my wife have a little competition. We're each trying to get to 1,000 signatures, and we got a good group of people. And thank you for everybody else who's doing this. Which brings up a point, right? People, one of the number one questions I get asked while I'm out there canvassing is people say, do you think this will happen? And I'm like, do you think I'm a lunatic? Like, do you think I would sit here? Like, I've spent 120 hours sitting in front of my pickup truck on the side of Highway 1A at the intersection of Bears Paw Road. Like, 120 hours. Like, if I was in Nova Scotia, I'd qualify for EI at this point, right? So my answer is absolutely I believe in this. So let me tell you why. Let me tell you my quick story. So actually, before I start, and I answer honestly, who here was not born in Alberta? All right, that's cool, and that's typical, right? I've asked that question all through my working career, and about usually a quarter to a third of the people were not born here, and it's irrelevant whether you're born here or not. It's whether you believe you're an Albertan, right? So I was not born here. I'm from Northern Ontario, from the Timmins, Kapuskasing, Hearst part of the world. Graduated high school in 1985. I always tell this story. My father, when I was in grade 11, my father got called to the school, and I had to sit there with the principal while the principal told my dad that his son will not amount to anything in life. But credit to my dad. My dad was not worried because my dad lived in a Canada that doesn't exist anymore, but my dad lived in a Canada where hard work still got you ahead. And my father was convinced of that. And the reason I was being called at the school is because I was busy working. I wasn't finding school very interesting, and I preferred to just work. And so I was sort of skipping out on school. Anyways, I smartened up a little bit, went to university. Don't like to admit this, but I went to the University of Ottawa. So I graduated engineering in Ottawa. And then while I was in Ottawa, I had the opportunity, I was doing what's called a co-op program. So you do work terms. So I did 2 work terms. You work, study, work, study, work, study, right? So I did a couple of work terms in the auto industry. And then all of a sudden I'm looking at the job board, and there's these jobs in Alberta. And Alberta was calling. And so I came and I did a work term, actually not Alberta. First one was in Saskatchewan in Burstall. Second one was in Swan Hills, of all places. And I remember my dad telling me, if my father had traveled the country quite a bit, and Dad said, if you go to Alberta, we're never seeing you again, right? And he was right. So then after university, I graduated, got my job in Fox Creek. Wow, like Fox Creek. So I ended up in Fox Creek for 8 years of my life, which were the formative years of my adult life, right? And I'll tell you, when I landed in Fox Creek and I started working, I didn't become an Albertan. That's when I realized I was an Albertan. I found my people, right? I don't know if anybody else has ever had that epiphany, but I landed in Fox Creek, show up and I was working for a company called Amoco, and Amoco wanted us as an engineer. They wanted me to operate first before I'd ever engineer. So I got to operate, got to hang out with millwrights, mechanics, instrument hands, stuff like that. First day I'm in the field, and they're looking around. They're like, "That's the new guy, Marty. Who's going to take Marty?" Herman, you take Marty, right? And I took off with Herman, come back, and everybody thought Herman was going to chew me a new a-hole, but we just hit it off right because I respected Herman right from the get-go, and I was there to learn, and I had more questions, and I think he was tired of my questions at the end of the day, but we hit it off great. So my career progressed, climbed through the ranks, literally climbed through the ranks, made it all the way to very senior roles. So I was a senior engineer, director of operations for TransCanada. So it was my team that operated the Keystone Pipeline. It was my team that designed Keystone XL that never went anywhere, and I'll talk about that. It was my team that did Energy East, and then I'm a real sucker for punishment, so then I ended up working as the president of an oil company in Quebec, of all places, drilling oil and gas wells in Quebec, and I got expropriated out of there. But so I had a career, and I had a successful career because along the way, like I said, my father's wish was for us to do better, his kids to do better than him, and he was confident that, you know, the world we lived in would do that. And the world that the Alberta that I came into in the 1990s, in early 1990, that existed. There was something called the Alberta Advantage, right? So we came here, and that's the other reason I got accepted in Fox Creek is I wasn't there to take. And the guys knew that. I was there for the same reason they were there, and the gals. We were there to solve a problem. We were there to produce oil. We were there to produce gas. We were there to earn a living for ourselves and for our futures and for our families and to help everybody else. So if you came there with that mindset, you were instantly accepted. And there was this thing called the Alberta Advantage. You get up, you work hard. We have small government. The government gets out of your way. You have low taxation. I mean, who remembers living here when there was no GST, right? $9.99. If it's $9.99, you took out your $10 bill and they gave you a penny. It was $9.99. You didn't have to do math in your head, right? So that and that Alberta was good to me. And if you ask me, and probably most of you, if you ask me pick a year, if you asked me in 1994, by then, if you said, hey, Marty, are you aware that you're paying taxes that are going to Ottawa and they're wasting your taxes? You know, there's this thing called equalization. My answer would have been, I don't care. Don't care. Why? Well, I got a little house. It's not fancy, but I bought it and I can afford it. I'm on my way to paying it off. I got a pickup truck. I got a couple of kids. I got another one on the way. Kids are playing hockey. I got a sled. It's not fancy, but it's mine. And I can afford gas. It's only 35 cents a liter. And I can go to the mountains and sled. So life was good. And if you told me I was over-contributing and spending taxes, I didn't care. I'd say I'm a good Albertan. I'm privileged. I'm happy to help them out, right? And so it went on like that for a long time. But then start rolling the clock forward, right? So now it's 2014, and we all lived through this, right? So in 2014, there's a downturn in the economy. The price of oil goes down to $14. And what do we do when there's a downturn in the economy? We don't care normally. We've all been through those cycles, right? The boom bust. Lord, let us get through this one, and hopefully I won't, you know. So what do we do in those downturns? We spend on infrastructure. When the times are tough, you spend on infrastructure because it's cheaper. So what do we want to do in Alberta? We want to build a couple of pipelines. So we go and ask Ottawa, you know, we need a little bit of help. And we didn't ask for financial help. We just said, can you help us get this pipeline across to BC or down south to Keystone XL? Can you help us? And they didn't. Well, and by then I was a senior guy, right? So I'm speaking from absolute experience. I'm trying to build Keystone, and we're asking for help, and the help's not coming. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I've over-contributed. I kind of thought of it as an insurance policy. I'm part of Confederation. You guys are going to help us in the downturn. Nope, no help. I'm like, all right. You brush it off. You go, all right, lesson learned. Price of oil comes back up. We start working. Things are going good. And then Trudeau gets elected. And not only are they not, so now they're not helping when I ask for help. That's bad enough. But now they're hindering us, right? They don't want, like, now they're putting carbon taxes on us, and they're putting emissions caps, and they want me to park my diesel truck, and they want me to drive an electric vehicle, and they want us to put windmills everywhere and go net zero and green this and green that. And it's like, wow, you guys are like actually interfering in our lifestyle here. You're not helping not only are you not helping, but you're interfering. And then we had COVID. And don't even like, so now they're really interfering, and they're trying to push us down. And then it goes further, right? Today they're trying to grab our guns. They don't want us owning land. They don't want us buying fertilizer to grow crops. They're literally trying to keep us down. And so now I'm going to tell you what happened to me personally, of how I witnessed that in a way that should scare you all, because you've heard that Ottawa's interfering, but you have no idea how much they don't like us and how much they are interfering. So fast forward, I was working on a project called Goldboro. So and the reason I'm bringing up 5 minutes, thanks Jason, I'll be quick. But Goldboro was a project, an LNG project, liquefied natural gas, right? And there is, believe it or not, there's a way to get natural gas from Alberta all the way to Nova Scotia. Like there's a path, it's a little tortuous, but we can get it there. And so we built a facility, sorry, we didn't build a facility. We signed a contract to sell 20 years worth of liquefied natural gas to Germany, a 10 million metric ton per year contract worth $35 billion. Okay, and we signed that contract. It's not confidential. I can tell you this. It's all public domain, but it was signed very quietly because Germany didn't want to admit to the world openly that they had done this, because that was an admission that their transition to green had completely failed, right? So they shut down their nuclear and their coal, and they went hard on wind, and then they were dependent on the Russians. So we all know how that worked out for them. So the Germans want to buy gas from us, and they buy gas, and it was so important to them that they actually gave us these huge loan guarantees worth $4.5 billion so we could build this thing. So we did the engineering, we did everything, and when we were done the engineering, we were finally ready to start building, and we actually had some pretty good, we started getting permits. Despite the fact that they didn't like us getting permit, we're using the regulatory framework, and we were getting permits. But then the Germans asked an interesting question. So we were getting ready to borrow money, and the Germans said, before you do that and before we give you the loan guarantees, can we get a letter from your government telling us that they're on board? So tried to get a letter from Trudeau. Trudeau said no. Trudeau said that we were in a dying industry. $35 billion contract. Trudeau said we were in a dying industry. If I'd gone to him with a $10 million contract to sell potatoes to Argentina, he would have probably given me the $10 million himself to build a factory. But we said to him, no, we're not in a dying industry. You're in an industry that you're trying to kill us. There's a big difference. But the letter, and I'll be quick, we didn't get a letter from him. He tried to pass it off to Sohi. I didn't get a letter from Sohi. I didn't get a letter from anyone. I got a letter from, of all people, Rachel Notley, which is bizarre. But the reason I got a letter from Rachel Notley is at least somebody on her staff still understood the importance of this. But at the end of the day, the letter became irrelevant because we tried to go and get the money. Now, we needed about $10 billion. And you can't get $10 billion in Canada. Canadian banks wouldn't do it. So we went overseas. And I literally sat in rooms with banks in Malaysia and you have no idea how depressing it is to hear a bank in Malaysia say, love your project, not investing in Canada. Why not? Too risky. You guys are too risky. Political risk, things take too long. We're not building any, we're not funding you. Where would you rather invest? Argentina, Israel, South America, South Africa, you name them. I'm like, wow. So we're not even on the list, right? So anyways, we never built the project. The project got killed, and we abandoned the project. But I'm just telling you that because they are not, and I can give you a million reasons why, the economic reasons and the culture, but I'll tell you two things. It is an existential threat. So Ottawa does not like us, and the East does not think like us. So when I was in Fox Creek, and you're in this room, we're Albertans, okay? We're different. I don't need to go into a whole lot of details, but we think differently. We might be somewhat culturally the same as other places, but they've been infected by a mind virus and by this wokeism, and they can do whatever they want. We're going to protect ourselves. So for us, it has become existential. We have to do this. We don't get opportunities like this very often. We have to do this to protect ourselves. There's great financial reasons to do it, but ultimately we have to do it to protect ourselves. And all, like Tanya said, and other speakers are going to say, all attempts to change their mind will never succeed. There's nothing in it for them. They don't want the system works for them, and it doesn't work for us. And so there's no way we're going to change their mind. So I just my quick story, just wanted to say that. So I want to leave you, Jason's flashing me here. I just want to leave you with one quick call to action. Yes, thank you for volunteering to be canvassers. We've issued 200,000 sheets right now, which is enough to collect 1 million signatures. If you have a sheet or 2 or 3, do not bring back empty sheets. Hold on to them until they're full. And then keep doing this, right? This is engagement. It doesn't sound like much, but keep coming here, listen to us. If you just get one little takeaway today that helps you convince somebody in one of your conversation, it's all worth it. And this next phase, I'm not worried. We're going to get the signatures. We're going to get the referendum. I have no doubt about that. The battle is afterwards. It's during the campaign with the vote leading up to the referendum. And for that one, that's when I need everyone here to bring one person to that polling booth. All right. Thanks, everyone.
He kept saying billions and this and billions and that, but I want to kind of put it into perspective for you a little bit here. As Tanya highlighted, every year Alberta sends around 60 billion and we get about 30 billion in services, which means 30 billion, we get nothing for it. It works out to $6,000 for every man, woman, and child in Alberta. But NASA is going to go build a moon base and take a bunch of rockets and do this over several years, and guess how much you're spending there? 20. So every single year, Alberta can make a spaceport, go to the moon, set up, maybe do some mining, find some oil, and do this every single year with the money that we do not get services back from Ottawa. Just to put it into perspective, like when you hear billions, it doesn't mean much until you start to think about it that way. Trans Mountain costs twice that. We can maybe make a pipeline to the moon and bring it all back and still do better. But who here couldn't do with $6,000 for every man, woman, child? In your family of 4, that's $24,000, $2,000 a month, every month. That's how much you're not getting services back. That's not the services you are getting. So OSA, you got healthcare and all this stuff. That's already paid for. This is money that we're getting nothing for it. So speaking of more money and more global view, now that you got your mind on the moon, let's come back to Earth and have a geopolitical conversation about what it means for Alberta to do this and what it can mean for the entire world. Our next speaker is Fergus, and he's got a couple books back there. They're selling great. He does a lot of stuff about the monetary system and whether or not we can afford to stay in this current system and what it looks like on the geopolitical stage. So without further ado, Fergus. I don't know if you want to pull that out if you're tall.
Oh, sure. We'll see.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Jason didn't mention, but I actually drove all the way up from Colorado for this week of speaking engagements. I care so much about this. So I'm a Canadian in exile, or my mother grew up in Calgary, and I moved to Canada after college looking for work, but ended up going to business school in the United States, and then during the COVID era, I opted not to come back to Canada, right? Okay, so why did I drive all this way? Because I believe this is the preeminent movement for self-determination and freedom on the planet. This is the place I want to devote my efforts, my resources, and I agree with Marty's comment before that this really is an existential fight for Albertans because there's a unique way of life here, and it will be lost if more of the talent continues to bleed south and more of the policies continue to basically just overwhelm this great place, this great part of the world. So I'm going to break it down. I'm going to, sorry, this hockey stick is having a good time here. Okay, yeah. So now I'm going to break it down from two angles. First, I want to explain why this is such an important movement for the international sphere, right? It's a win-win-win, a win for Alberta, for the rest of Canada, and for the world. And then I want to explain why or how Alberta can and will be the freest nation on the planet. Now, that is not hyperbole, that is a reality. Now, first, just a little bit of a sense for the current situation. Now, the first section of my book, Financial Sovereignty for Canadians, Untether Yourself from the Ottawa Leviathan, the first section explains the trajectory of Canada right now. And unfortunately, the trajectory is unpleasant. So we know this, right? So basically, Canada is on the path to becoming like Argentina, okay? So these countries actually share many similarities. They're European colonized. Argentina was one of the world's leading and most developed nations a century ago. They have incredible natural resources. They're vast in terms of geographical space, but they are somewhat parochial in terms of the provincialism. Argentina is a post-First World nation. It is very rare that a nation achieves economic development and then retreats. Canada is on that path right now. And this is particularly the case because we have less capital per worker and less innovation, and because human capital is leaving. If you don't have the human capital, the talent, you will become a third world nation. So the outlook is very bleak, and the trajectory is already more advanced in some parts of the country, right? So Alberta is the best, right? So Alberta is the most developed or the most prosperous. If you go to Atlantic Canada, and my first job out of college was out in Halifax, you will see there a rundown place, a place without opportunity, without hope. And I'll get into more details, but that 61% of the Nova Scotian economy is just government spending. Wow. What is left, right? There's the lack of pride and optimism is just gone. People have been leaving for 50 years to come right here to Alberta. Okay, so let me stay on track here. So the challenge right now is that Alberta is culturally distinct and being squeezed from the sides, and we really have a culture here that is more aligned with Montana, Wyoming, Idaho than with the rest of Canada. We all know this, right? That Alberta doesn't fit in Canada. And so, as Tanya mentioned, this trajectory which we observe right now is basically locked in because there is no way for Alberta to achieve any constitutional changes. Canada needs a disruption, right? It is stuck on an unhealthy path, and only a disruption will break that. And so there are many problems, to be frank, but one of the main problems which we all know about is equalization. Another one is supply management. These are just like albatrosses upon the Canadian economy. They reward stagnation and punish meritocracy, or punish merit. Okay, so how can this be a triple win, right? So a win for Alberta. I'm preaching to the choir here. The fact is that Alberta would have an incredibly more dynamic, responsible, accountable, cost-effective system of governance without Ottawa on its back, okay? Now, this is maybe an unexpected one. How would the rest of Canada improve without Alberta's presence? Of course, they'd face a fiscal challenge in the short run, right? It would immediately cause Ottawa to change its ways. Ottawa would have to grow up and pay its own bills and stop being a bunch of babies or predators, both, on the rest of the provinces. Because if they did not change, other provinces would lead too. Alberta would show it can be done, and Saskatchewan would line right up to join Alberta. So I actually think that Canada, the broader country of Canada, needs this. So Alberta will be doing a favor to themselves and to the rest of Canada. Okay, and so why is this so important in terms of the arc of history or in terms of other countries? Because we are stuck. In 1992, there was a famous book called The End of History and the Last Man by Francis Fukuyama, and he discussed the fact that after the Soviet Union had gone down, we'd basically reached almost like a pinnacle of governance, that liberal democracy was it, and we just live happily ever after. It didn't happen. In fact, we've been going backwards. Economic freedom and democratic accountability have been in decline for the last 30-odd years. Okay, so one of the reasons is that we've seen centralization of power and not decentralization, right? In the 20th century, there were many more countries that sprouted. So there were 60 or so in 1900, and there are around 200 now. But we've been stuck for the last quarter century. So if Alberta goes independent, it will do so peacefully, and it will achieve incredible prosperity, and it will be a shot in the arm for all the secession and independence movements around the world, right? So, for example, I'm a big fan of Texas becoming a new nation, of Ireland seceding from the European Union, and of Cortes, a part of Honduras, becoming a new country in Central America. But really, that just scratches the surface. New Hampshire there are many people supporting New Hampshire independence from the United States, and it would be a real renewal of governance and accountability, so a real healthy trajectory or change that Alberta can lead. Okay, so I made the claim that Alberta can be the freest nation on the planet, and that is not hyperbole. Really, that's just continuity, and with a few basically automatic changes. So first, as was discussed by previous speakers, immediately, as soon as Alberta leaves, it'll have a 5% boost to economic income that is right now being redistributed, and that's a very conservative or modest estimate. So let me back up a second. Right now, there are very careful rankings of economic freedom around the world. And why is economic freedom so important? It correlates so highly with many positive outcomes. Lifespan, infant mortality, just per capita income. People who are in the top quarter of nations for economic freedom live something like 20 years longer than people in the bottom quarter, right? So economic freedom is pivotal, and that is exactly what Canada has been losing for the last generation, okay? And so, does anyone know what ranking Canada has in the Economic Freedom Index? No, okay, we're not that negative. Okay, so Canada always was in the top 10, even the top half a dozen, and it used to be ahead of the United States. So it's now gone out. The latest number I saw is 11th, which I think is generous, but regardless, it is behind the United States and other peer nations. So the top nations are Hong Kong, Singapore, New Zealand, Switzerland, the United States, and then Ireland. And I would kick out Hong Kong because it really is just becoming part of China. And what's interesting is that most of those top nations are actually very small. The United States is an extreme outlier and largely achieves that because of nullification and staunch resistance from the states to centralization. So how can Canada leapfrog those nations? I mean, how can Alberta leapfrog those nations and become the number one? Actually, it will happen almost automatically. So like I said, the first change is just that the taxation will go down immensely. And the biggest barrier to Canada being in the top 10 or top 5 nations is the size of government. So a lady suggested there maybe Canada was 70th for economic freedom. Let's assume first is the best, the smallest, leanest government around. Where does Canada come for this? 102nd. Okay, mate, he came to one of my earlier speeches. Okay, no, so Canada can't even crack the top 100, which means there are more than 100 countries with a smaller, more limited government than Canada's, okay? This is the fundamental roadblock to freedom in this country. And that's what I mean, there are so many entrenched parties feeding off this system that are impeding decentralization, deregulation. Okay, so immediately as soon as Alberta becomes independent, it will have a smaller size of government. And okay, yeah, and so Nova Scotia, they spend 61% of their economy through the government. In Alberta, it is 30%. It's a huge difference. And Canada overall is 44%. If Alberta can just achieve that target of 30%, that basically alone would be enough to put Alberta right in the top 1 or 2 nations. Now, there are other policies that would go into place right away, such as having their a pension scheme local, which would be 40% cheaper, having a right to property in the new constitution, which is not in the Canadian Charter, allowing a private sector in medicine, which is insane. I can't believe that can't happen here. Well, the Albertans already want it to happen, but they're stuck by laws impeding their own marketplace here. So both New Zealand and Switzerland have a private sector of medicine. It works alongside the public sector. This is what I grew up with. No one ever thought anything about it. They pay less and get better quality, right? It's very simple. Okay, so let me think of the other options here. So one of the main options too is that right now the Canadian loonie is really under inflationary pressure. And that is another area where Canada scores poorly in these rankings. So when Alberta is independent, it can choose to have full currency optionality, which means people can choose which currency they use. Probably they'll use the US dollar. Maybe they'll use the loonie when they need to. Maybe cryptocurrencies will arise in the next decade. They could use the Swiss franc is actually the best currency around, but what would happen is a spontaneous order, and the best currency would work and fit the needs of the people. And that would immediately get Canada up. So if we bring these very simple changes together, Alberta will be the freest country by far, easily. So, and as I know, the one that really grates me is the lack of the right to property in the Canadian Charter. This is something that's very important to Albertans. So Albertans have both a desire for economic freedom and for their cultural values to be respected. And so these go hand in hand, and one of those values, which is basically both, it's part of economic freedom and a part of your values, is a right to property. So the outlook, in my view, is amazing, that the sky is the limit for Alberta. Alberta can lead the world. It can become a beacon of freedom. It can become basically the new flag bearer of freedom for the world, and in many ways offer the freedoms that maybe the United States proposes to offer, but struggles to do so. And that is why, I think, like I said, this is really the pivotal movement for securing economic freedom for the world, and it can be a wonderful role model. So I really appreciate your time. Thanks for listening to my perspective, and I'll be at the back with these books if you want to chat about it further. I also have a leaflet discussing what you can do to protect yourself against any kind of bank freezing or whatever happened to people during the trucker convoy. Okay? Cheers.
How many of you remember the trucker convoy? How many of you remember the Public Order Emergency Commission? How many of you are familiar with the Mosley decision that said it was illegal for the government to use the Emergency Act? How about that appeal that also said it was illegal to use the Emergency Act? And how many of you are aware that it's going to the Supreme Court, potentially, because the government has asked for a leave to go to the Supreme Court to have an appeal done there? Doesn't that sound like a lot of hard work? Yeah. One of the lawyers that did all of that for you is here today. So Bathsheba, if you can stand up for us quickly. And because she's not busy enough, she's also Detective Helen Gruce's lawyer as she's going through that tribunal. So thank you, Bathsheba. It's people like you that fight for human rights in Canada very quietly in the background and get things done. And without people like you willing to stand up and fight for us, I would hate to see where we'd be at. Thank you and God bless. Our last speaker, and we can say save the best for last, but they're all great, aren't they? Yeah. But I listened to her speech for the first time yesterday, and she just blew me away. We had to spend 5 minutes looking for my socks because she was amazing, absolutely amazing. Very down to earth, very articulate, very common sense, very pragmatic, stoic, and I just enjoy listening to you, Angela. So if you haven't seen her before, she travels all over Alberta talking to women in kitchens and around the water cooler or wherever they are with Kathy Flett. And I like to refer to them as Bonnie and Clyde, Thamo and Louise without the cliff, because we need them. We need both of them to continue to travel around Alberta. So without further ado, Angela.
So in my early 20s, I had the opportunity to go to Europe for a year and a half and live there. And most of my time was spent in northern Belgium, living right in Flanders fields where those poppies blow, right? And at that time, most of my roommates were American. And so one of the very first phrases that I learned in Flemish was, "Ik ben geen Amerikaner," which meant, I am no American. And the reason that was important was living where I was, the history of the Canadians in that area still meant a lot to the people of that area. And when I would tell them I'm Canadian, they would invite me into their homes. Now, this was 30 years ago, so some of them had actually fought in the last World War. Many of them knew the stories of their grandfathers, their grandparents in World War I and World War II. And they knew what the Canadians had done to fight for that tiny little land. And I will never forget riding my bike through the beautiful Belgian countryside along the canals and coming across a small Canadian military cemetery. getting off that bike and walking up and down the rows of those headstones, those poppies blown, and seeing the names and the ages of those young men and what they did to preserve the freedom of the people in Europe, to fight for our freedoms, their freedoms. It meant a lot to me, and I was a very proud Canadian. Loved my country. Came back to Alberta, spent a couple of years in Calgary, and then ended up in California in Silicon Valley for 7 years. When I finally came back to Alberta for good, I quickly realized that the Canada that I knew and loved and was so very proud of no longer existed. Or maybe it was just that my eyes were being opened up and I was starting to see things for what they were. Tonight I wish to speak briefly with you about a key element that I believe is missing in Canadian society, and what I believe we need to capture as Albertans if we are ever to become a prosperous, free, and sovereign nation. Now, Tanya already mentioned the beginnings of Alberta, 1904, 1905. At that time, it was made very clear that we were never meant to be full participants in Canada. The same attitude continued, again, as Tanya mentioned, with the National Energy Program. As a young child living in a small northern Alberta oil town, I remember wondering where all my classmates had gone as the town emptied out. And eventually my family too walked away from our home and went somewhere else. It was a very devastating time. In 1987, Secretary of State David Crombie introduced the Canadian Multiculturalism Act. He declared the act would promote the full and equitable participation of individuals and communities of all origins in, and this is the important part, in the continuing evolution and shaping of all aspects of Canadian society. In the ensuing 39 years, we have witnessed the continuous evolution and shaping of Canadian society, to the point that our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau declared that there is no core identity, no mainstream in Canada. Our current Prime Minister cannot decide what Canadian values are and keeps claiming other cultures' values as our own. We now have a justice system that considers your ancestral background and perhaps your immigration status before sentencing you. We have witnessed a former world-class immigration system reduced to what now equates to open borders. We see ethnic enclaves throughout all our major cities and a subsequent lack of cohesion throughout Canadian society. During COVID, we once again witnessed divisive tactics being used on Canadians as our Prime Minister called those who chose to remain unvaccinated derogatory names and wondered aloud if we should tolerate these people. The constant and never-ending pitting of one group of Canadians against another has taken its toll on Canadian society and on us as individuals. It has also kept the elite in power and the regular folk too distracted to see what is really happening. A year ago, my good friend Kathy Flett and I formed the Alberta Women's Independence Network. Our purpose in doing this was to hold small meetings in women's homes or local cafes and restaurants all across the province to discuss the state of Canada and what our options were to bring about change. Our focus has been on education, building community through respectful dialogue, and conveying a message of hope. After sitting with literally thousands of men and women throughout the province in these smaller, intimate meetings, I think I understand now what we as Albertans must absolutely do. In 2024, retired Canadian Armed Forces Colonel David Redmond published a paper for the Frontier Centre for Public Policy. While Colonel Redmond has stated he does not support Alberta independence, in his paper he outlines 6 national interests or pillars that are essential to a strong, free, and prosperous nation. I think they are worth looking at through the lens of Alberta independence. The 6 pillars that he lists are unity, national security, good governance, protection of rights and freedoms, economic prosperity and growth, and personal and community well-being. Colonel Redmond states, unity is the core value for a country. A cultural unity is based on common shared ethics, values, and beliefs. This is what has truly been missing from Canadian society, and this is something that as Albertans, if we are to become our own independent state, we must embrace. All efforts will eventually fail without a strong underpinning of unity. But the problem is, unity is not something that we can talk about like economics or certain freedoms. It's a little more ambiguous. So, what are some of the common shared ethics, values, and beliefs that you as an Albertan cherish and adhere to? We've heard some of them tonight already. We're talking about our rights and freedoms. We're talking about respect, equality, individual responsibility, resilience, compassion, grit, our hard work ethic, innovation, entrepreneurship, and most importantly, I believe, patriotism and national pride. These are things that we can rally around no matter whether you were born in Alberta or not, whether you were born in Canada or not. These are, when I think of Albertans, these are the words that come to mind. As we move forward in pursuit of Alberta independence, we must individually and collectively be very intentional. So what can we as individuals do to promote unity around these shared values, ethics, and beliefs? Our isolation from one another keeps the elites in power. Our connection with each other destroys that power. I am convinced that at this stage in the game, the only way we are going to win it is through one-on-one interactions with our friends and family. We need to step out from behind the keyboard and get involved. The fact that you are here tonight tells me that you are willing to get involved. Getting involved does not mean that you have to be the one at the front speaking. It's simply coming to a meeting and bringing a friend or a neighbor with you. Your heartfelt invitation to a family member, friend, or neighbor to get together for coffee will do more to build connection and unity than any number of electronic messages you might send out. If this is something that feels too far out of your comfort zone, consider bringing in the reinforcements. The reinforcements might be meetings like this. It's real easy. Just invite your friend. I'm going to this meeting. Let's go check it out. Or it might be inviting myself or Kathy or any of the other women that we have around the province who will come and sit in your home or meet up with you and your friends at a restaurant, and we'll help you lead that discussion and have those needed conversations. Collectively and individually, we must be aware of tactics that are used to divide us as a people. When we see them being used, call it out. I don't care if it is a current politician, a former politician, or who it is. If they are using tactics that we recognize as being divisive and meant to pit Albertans against each other, we have to call that out. Do not fall into the trap and engage in name-calling, othering, or other damaging and divisive behaviors. We need to rise above that. We totally can. I have all the faith in the world in my fellow Albertans that we can do this. We need to find the common ground with each other and with those outside of our immediate circles and build on that commonality. 6 years ago, I joined the independence movement through the Wild Rose Independence Party of Alberta, serving as the Constituency Association President for Cardston-Siksika. Later, I became involved with the party on a provincial level. I had a front row seat to the tactics used to bring down the independence movement, the same tactics that have been used over and over and over again over the last 50 years. While we need to stay focused on the tasks at hand of gathering signatures and then educating enough Albertans to achieve a successful referendum in October, we need to be wary of anyone that would put themselves forward as a leader of this movement who engages in any tactic that divides, shuts down conversations, uses name callings with those that will disagree with them, or uses fear-mongering. We need to have some really hard conversations over the next year, 2, whatever it might be. We need to have the ability to have those conversations, to go back and forth, to disagree with each other respectfully, to find the best solutions and the best plans for hopefully our new nation. I often think of my childhood back in the 70s and 80s and the chaos that it was. It was often idyllic at times. And I remember a particular playground game that we would play at school. And some of you will recognize this immediately. Red Rover, Red Rover. Oh, I see the heads nodding. We call Tanya over, okay? And so what was the point of the game? You had 2 lines of kids, right? And we would hold hands so tight, or we would link arms, right? We've created this wall, this impenetrable wall, right? And then we would call Tanya over, and Tanya would just come barreling at us, and her goal was to break that bond, to break that wall. And it was painful. Like, if you were the one that was getting rammed at by some other kid who's just barreling at you, it hurt. Or if you were the one running and you ran into a very strong link, you were getting clotheslined, you were going down. They don't let kids play that game anymore. So, but we did. We were only successful when we completely held on to each other so tight. And to me, that is an analogy of how, as Albertans, we need to be now. The knives came out about a month ago, where it got ugly. And I was like, whoa, what is happening? When we saw, anyways, we won't even go there. We won't give them any time of day. But we need to be standing so strong and so resolute, finding the commonalities, the common things that bind us together, shoulder to shoulder, completely determined that we will have our say. We will have our choice. And we do trust each other that we can achieve what we are trying to achieve. And that no matter what the obstacle is, we can overcome it. Albertans have never backed down from difficult situations. Grew up mostly in Fort McMurray. How they get the oil out of that sand, I do not know. And yet, they figured it out. They figured it out, and it's amazing, and we always figure it out. Unity is at the core of any successful nation. My challenge to you tonight is to go forward with the goal of creating unity in Alberta through your individual efforts and through our efforts as a movement. We can be a light on a hill and provide that which so many Albertans and Canadians crave and need. Thank you.
How's it going so far for all of you? Yeah. Who has the scars from Red Rover? There's a lot of games we played back then you can't play anymore, for sure. To put these events on, we keep it free because we want people to come to the event, but it's not free for us to do this. So at one point, there's going to be a little bucket thing that goes around. So if you can contribute, that's great. We know times are tough, so any little bit helps. Appreciate that. There's also vendors in the back. You can get Tallow-licious, which is some tallow-based products. They're very good for your skin. Paula uses them all over the place, and she looks stunning. So if you don't want to know her secret, it's tallow. I also have some books back there. Fergus is back there signing. Oh, you got one right there? You don't even need it. There we go. I also have a book as well. If you want to get an autograph, I can do that for you. Happy to do that. And then also, of course, if you haven't put your signature down yet, that opportunity is here as well. So we're going to take a bit of a 5-minute break, grab some water, visit around, and then come on back, and we're going to do our Q&A. Thank you very much.
So we're going to intermission mode right now, just about 5 minutes, and we'll set up the cameras right in there. See you around in 5 minutes. I'm just gonna put into intermission mode, and we'll go from there. Hello. I have Tanya here. How's it going?
Good. How are you, Max?
Yeah, enjoying well, and I just want to see if you guys over there are actually enjoying the show. If you actually learned something perhaps different from last night or the last ones. I don't know if you're in the chat can say something. Have some people watching from Innisfail, Calgary. Innisfail is not too far from here. I don't know why they couldn't come here, but that was good. So I think that Jason's gonna come soon. He's just doing the information and people taking coffee and everything. So I want to thank you, Tanya, for showing up and doing your presentation. And I think that you're gonna be also in Calgary tomorrow with the other guys too.
Yep, in Calgary tomorrow night at the Glenmore Inn as well. So that should be a good one. Same lineup of speakers, so lots of information to share. So I hope people will come and ask questions, and it's a very safe, welcoming space for some civil discourse and talking about some tough things, but in a way that you feel like you can ask your questions.
No, and that's important to keep the discussion too, right? Oh, 10 to 10. Tanya is pretty. Yes, Alberta getting great shows. Yeah, of course. And I'm telling you, talking to my usual audience now. This is kind of cool. So I don't know how it's going to start. Just talking to the people before starting the show. So I'm ready. Well, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you in a bit.
Thanks for doing this, Max. You're doing
What's
a
that?
great job.
Awesome, thanks.
Okay.
Put a lot of money into this too.
It's gonna pay back. So donate to Max and follow him. And
Yeah,
subscribe
absolutely.
And watch it. He covers all the good stuff, and you're gonna get lots of information about Alberta independence that way.
Yep. So just for the audience, I will be in Edmonton on Saturday at 7. I will be live streaming from there, and I'm also going to live stream the event in Morinville, which is about 20 miles north of Edmonton. We have folks from, I think Keith Wilson will be there on Sunday. So I will be there live streaming that event as well. That will be very interesting to see. I basically touch base with the technical team from the Morinville Cultural Center. Amazing team to work with. Very, very, very helpful on the technical front. So, but I will be there in Morinville and Edmonton. So if you are in the Edmonton area on Saturday, I will be there at the Caravan Center, Community Center. That's on the west end-ish. And Morinville Community Center, that's right in Morinville, the French town. So I just want to see where you guys are watching from. I see some people from Innisfail, Red Deer. I want to see over there where are you guys watching from. Just looking at the comments here. And don't forget the super chats too. That really helps keep the show going, and the e-transfers as well. So let's do a little roundup here. So we got... Keep up the what more? Keep it up, Max. Yes, thanks. And that's funny because this is the event. Oh, the guy from Chicago. Yay, Cowtown, Lacombe. We got people from Calgary too. That's awesome. Lacombe, that's on my way home. Florida. Hey, we got people from Florida watching the show. That's awesome. Montreal. Sigo de Tabak. I used to live in Montreal a while ago. I know what it is. Hi, my brother Patrick. Patrick's good, awesome. James River Bridge. Oh, there's another town hall, I guess, from the guys from the Whistle Stop. Well, Chris Scott and his Alberta tour. They're doing a show at James River Bridge, I believe. I think this week or something. I think it's on Friday, but I'm not 100% sure. Grand Prairie, of course. I need to go to Grand Prairie one day. I think that's going to be a nice place to be there. Crossfield, not too far from here. Edmonton, that's where I came from. I drove all the way from Edmonton. So it's like 100 miles. You good, Jason? You okay? Want to call it out? Okay.
Okay, hello, check. You're doing good. Hello? Yeah. Ooh, pretty loud. We're going to get ready for in about 5 minutes or so. If you can start heading back to your seats, that'd be great, and we'll get the Q&A started for you.
There it is. So we're going to start the Q&A soon. I'm going to switch the cameras just a little bit here, but Yeah, so this is what it looks like. Just the Q&A here, and so the last time there was a Q&A was in Leduc. We have a very good set of questions, which is very interesting to see. Oh, I'm from Smoky Lake, Alberta. I was there 2 weeks ago in Smoky. I don't know if you were at that time when they have this little incident with Layton Gray or something. That was really cool. Oh, thanks for the $14 super chat. That's awesome. Let's go. That's awesome. If you want to give Jason super chats, that would be awesome. Keep the lights on and keep the show up and going. I am from an hour away from Jason and Paula. Oh, that's awesome. Where is that? I don't know. We got some Cowtown folks from Calgary as well. We've got some Edmonton people. Where you guys are watching too. That's Provost. Oh, that's along the right. Provost. That's awesome. I talked to you to there. Oh, okay. I thought I talked to you there. Okay, gotcha. Sorry. I understand it now. All right, so the guys are going to they're going to set them. They're going to install themselves. Oh, you're good? Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to switch the cameras here, and we'll see you in a bit, I guess.
All right, we'll get the Q&A started. We'll get the speakers up here. We'll wait for Fergus because he's busy back there, but we can go ahead and get started. So let's, Red Rover, we'll call Fergus over. All right, Max, you're good? All right, so there's no such thing as a silly question. Don't be shy at all. It usually takes a little bit to get one or two people to go, and then we're here all night, so don't be shy. The one thing I would ask is stick to a question. You all have wonderful lives and stories, and I'm sure you'd love to share them all, but we do want to get everybody back to the road at some point, so let's try and stick to a question. You can introduce yourself, but we don't need to know about, everything. Maybe after, come and share that with us. So before we get started, we'll see how Fergus is doing back there. Yeah, he's busy, which is good, because he just drove up from the States and he just crossed the border and saw that gas price change. So we'll get him some gas money, okay? Yeah, appreciate you all. It's Canadian dollars too. Yeah. He was looking forward to like an Alberta buck versus a Canadian dollar. Yeah, I would like one of those. That Canadian dollar is not going to be very strong when Alberta does its thing, right? What's that? They're not going to be very strong. No. So let's go ahead. Anybody have any questions? Just come in the middle here. You're not on camera, so you don't worry about that. But I'm happy to address it. You can address it to the whole group, a single person, or just a general question, and we'll see if we can tackle it for you. The one caveat is, I do want to say, is we're not the authority, so don't say what currency are we going to have. Our answer is going to be, we think it could be, it might be, our recommendation or idea would be. But we're not setting the policies down here. At some point in the future, those will be done by the people, really. But we'll share some of our ideas with you. Beautiful purple, by the way.
Thank you. So this question's a little confusing because we keep talking about the transfer payments. And the girls mentioned, well, so much goes to Quebec, and then the rest goes elsewhere. How do we break down where that money comes from? Because if you go on the Alberta website, it says our transfer payment is $3.3 billion. And I'm going, well, that's not what I'm hearing. So can you guys explain that to me?
Yeah, so you want to tackle that? Yeah.
I can tackle that for sure. I look at a lot of data that, online I'm known as Marty up north, unacceptable fact checker. So I spend my days looking at data, and I'll tell you something. That question, that data is extremely hard to find. And when data is hard to find, there's a reason for it. It's because it's convenient for the government for people not to understand this, right? So the transfer payments, trying to find the formula for the transfer payments, trying to find where the money goes and all that is actually complicated. But so generally speaking, Individual Albertans do not pay transfer payments. Neither does Alberta. Individual Albertans pay taxes. So Albertans send $70 billion to Ottawa, and then Ottawa collects, all told, $500 billion from all the provinces, and then they redistribute it. But within Ottawa's program, there's something called the Equalization Program, which is about $15 billion. And so it's funded by all the province. But when you do the math, it's basically funded by Alberta because we get less from Ottawa back than what we send. So by definition, we're the ones who are shorted out. And it just so happens that of all those $15 billion that are part of, so you can find the equalization program. That you can find on the government website. You can see the $15 billion, and you can see clearly that 8 goes to Quebec, 1 goes to Nova Scotia, 2 goes to New Brunswick, and a little bit goes to PEI, and then the rest is scattered. So in principle, Alberta's sending about $9 billion to Quebec. That's how they come with the math.
There's also a really great fiscal document called The Value of Freedom, and it's a fully costed fiscal document for a sovereign Alberta. So anyone that's interested in the finances and the numbers of it, that's a great document to look at. And it's available for free to read or to download on albertaprosperity.com. It was written by Dennis Kalma and a group of economists and people that are a very high intellect level using numbers from Canadian data, from Alberta data, and it's all there in that document. It's an economic document, so it's like it's not an exciting, fun read, but it's very informational. And people that have questions about military spending and postal services and all those kinds of questions, it's all outlined there. It's the complete package for a sovereign Alberta. And it's also been a public document where they've actually invited, and there's like a link on it, that they've invited public scrutiny. So they've had economists open up to the world for anyone to view and challenge their numbers. And I think they've made some maybe small minor calculation changes on it and released their second version of it, pretty much the same as the first version. So it's been looked at by lots of people, so that's a pretty good resource for those questions.
Fergus, you want to add anything to that one? Are you good?
She said that the numbers are really low if you look on an Alberta website, but we're spouting numbers that come from it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that equalization is really just the start of the redistribution because spending goes to where it is most supposedly needed. And so if you just look at equalization, it will be smaller than the broader calculations that come from the Fraser Institute. Like I said, the Fraser Institute did their best, and in my view, it's a conservative estimate, and they estimated that it was 5% of Alberta's GDP every year is redistributed to other provinces, which is enormous. And like I said, and the problem is that it's very hard to calculate these things too. For example, we have a political class that is bilingual, and that basically discriminates against Albertans. How many people speak French here? Okay, well, a handful. I mean, the thing is that, so maybe 5% of the people here can get jobs in Ottawa, right? So there are structural inequalities, or you might say discriminatory policies that go beyond easy calculation.
I don't have a question, but it pertains to the value of freedom that we were just talking about. I'm going to do a plug for my friend John. He's talking to Albertans on YouTube, and he actually read The Value of Freedom word for word in about 3 episodes. So makes it very digestible, and then he has some analysis of his own opinion that goes along with it. So it's very informative. Thank you.
Is that John Alberta Patriot? Yeah. Okay, so you can find him all over the place. John Alberta Patriot. Great guy. And if you see him in public, he's wearing sunglasses and the Alberta flag. You can't miss him. Anybody else got a question? Yeah, great.
Question, I think for Fergus, but I've come up to people that don't want to sign because they don't want, they're going back to the trucker convoy, bank accounts frozen. So I've come to people that they'll vote, but they won't sign the petition. They don't want to put their information down.
I think that in some ways it's a rational decision. Unfortunately, we are being recorded. I mean, I'll just say that I'm very concerned that you have a government in Ottawa that is operating beyond legal bounds. and has shown a willingness to break its own laws when it feels threatened. And I wish more people were aware of this. This just underlines why this independence movement is so important, so we can reclaim the rule of law. It's a pivotal foundation for economic growth, investment, and I understand why people want to do that. But so I've prepared notes or ideas for how to avoid being a target. And one of my best friends in Calgary, he is an amazing podcaster. He doesn't use his real name in any of his shows or show his face, and he goes on something like 15 different platforms so he cannot be censored. And unfortunately, I feel like that's a rational decision for some people.
And just to let everybody know, those names and sheets go to Mitch Sylvester. They'll go to an accounting firm and then eventually Elections Alberta. It doesn't get forwarded to the government of Alberta or the federal government of Alberta.
Just Elections Alberta. Just
Elections
Alberta.
Alberta.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I asked the question and I did get the answer, but I believe a lot of people don't know. What about our parks?
Yeah, so thank you. I was talking to you about that, like on the break there. So the parks and all of our federal infrastructure become part of the negotiation of our exit from Canada. And the way, like Keith Wilson explains it very succinctly and uses great words for it, but it comes down to like a very simple, we are owed a bunch of money from overpaying into Confederation for the last however many years. The number is over $800 billion. They also have $330 billion of our pension money, which they've never actually given us the actual number. We're still waiting on that after the last couple of years. But when that comes to us, then we do a fiscal accounting of all of the parks that we have, our federal parks, our postal services, our border crossings, our correctional facilities, anything that's federally operated, and we do a tally of that. And then it just becomes basically like a monetary exchange. Very well, we might say, hey, this is the value we assign here. You actually owe us this much. It's a wash. Good day. Thank you. We're out of here.
And I would add that they will still be national parks, but under the nation of Alberta.
Right. Yeah, we definitely want to keep our parks.
I've got a question, but it's I guess it's one question for Fergus, and then generally for the panel is, so I just bought your book, and I opened it up, and on page 1, it starts off with talking about the freezing of Canadians' bank accounts. I'm just wondering, what was the inspiration? Because I can't find it in your preface. But what was your inspiration for writing this book and to starting it off with that note? That's my first question. And then second, just following up on a recent question, is there anything in this book or anything that anybody could say on the panel that would inspire or be sort of the toolkit, at least, to help Canadians shed their fear of standing up? And the reason why I ask this is because a lot of my clients have sacrificed so much for us, and I feel like we need to do the same, because things are going to get a hell of a lot worse if we don't shed that fear and have each other's back.
Okay, man, I'm feeling it. Okay, so this is such a crucial question. And it is true that the trucker convoy did inspire me to write the book, right? So I've been writing about Canada since 2008, 2009. And I thought we have people like beautiful people here who are not represented in Ottawa. Not a single person in Parliament opposed the lockdowns and the like, or stood up for the trucker convoy, right? And so I thought we've got a portion, let's say 20% of Canada, that really cares about freedom, or maybe the historic Canada. And what can you do when you're not represented politically? And so I personally don't want to just sit and complain. I want to take action. And so I gave the best option. I'm not saying there's some kind of miracle that's just going to make us all free tomorrow, but I said, these are the options. You know, you can use cash, you can use cryptocurrency, you can use alternative media, you can have bank accounts abroad. There are all these different strategies you can use that will make you less easily targetable, right? Now, in terms of the being a victim or suffering, you are so right. Right, one of my heroes in Alberta is Frances Widdowson. I'm sure many of you will know of her, right? The lady who's spoken about this hoax, about the quote-unquote genocide. My grandfather taught at an Indian day school on a reserve, right? Was he genocidal? No, it's ridiculous, okay? She has lost her job for, it seems like a decade now. For many years, she's been fighting just to maintain a livelihood. We are in a culture war, and there will be victims, and we need to rally around them. I think not all of us can afford to lose our jobs. Like I said, my friend who's the podcaster, he cannot afford to lose his job. People are going to identify us and try to hurt us. This is just the reality. We have to support people who are suffering from retribution.
I'm going to add to that a little bit. 100% agree with everything that you just said. And yeah, we do have to be wise, right? But at the same time, if I stand up by myself, and it's just me, it's a pretty easy target. Fergus, will you stand with me? Now I've got Fergus next to me. Marty? Tanya, get in here. It's a different story, right? This is a question of mass numbers, right? And this is where we cannot let up. We cannot let up. We have got to stand together, and we've got to bring people with us. I'll tell you very quickly, when COVID hit, I experienced anxiety like I've never had before. At that point, I was basically doing the single mom thing. I had 3 jobs to support myself and my daughter. All three of those jobs disappeared overnight. The anxiety was through the roof. When I fell into the position of becoming the Constituency Association president for the Wild Rose, all of a sudden I realized there's something I can do about this. I can actually take a stand, and I've got this lovely group of people around me, and we can try and do something to change things. That anxiety left. It's the same thing with fear. When we are standing together and we know that there are people who have got our backs and we've got theirs, that fear can disappear. Doesn't mean that there won't be victims. There will be victims. And I mean, we'll do everything we can to avoid that, right? Well, okay. There you go. I love it. I love it. You're totally right, Bathsheba. They are heroes. I just finished Tom Arouso's book, and now I know who you are. But yes, there are heroes. And if you don't want to, if you're not a frontline person, that's okay. But get behind those who are. And make it known that you are there and you are standing there. And that's the only answer I can think of.
Yeah, I like that too. That this conversation, this whole independence movement lives within the space of courage, right? And like we've talked about, being Albertan requires courage. We all know people who have come here from somewhere else or have helped build this country from being born here. We've all had the courage to be a part of that conversation. And I would just add, I guess, that we need to also give those in opposition some grace, because I think the opposition comes from a place largely of fear and maybe misunderstanding. So emotion comes from that too. So if we can lead a little bit by example and create that space where we can have the civil discourse and a little bit of grace for anyone that comes with opposition, maybe lead a little bit by example and not resort to what we're being met with.
Yeah, I'll just add one super pragmatic thing too. I get told by a few people once in a while, you know, you're so brave for doing what you're doing. But yes, I have friends, which helps with the bravery. But the other thing is you can practice being brave. You can practice, you know, you can challenge yourself. If you challenge yourself by learning a new skill or by going out in the wilderness or doing something, it's empowering to learn skills. And that gives you confidence, which gives you bravery. And then the other thing is to unshackle yourself from government, to not be dependent. So, you know, have your own job. I mean, that was the number one thing, right? Like that's what allowed me to survive a lot of this. Is near the end of my career, I was a contractor instead of being dependent on somebody else. So I think you can practice bravery. You can improve it. You learn it, yeah.
I think that's a great point, Marty. And unfortunately, I suspect a great many people working in academia are sympathetic to this, but they just can't speak their minds. There's incredible self-censorship in Canada, and each person needs to work to break it. I've been to Cuba and written about Latin America in great detail. There are many dictatorships down there, as you well know. And one thing the Cuban dictatorship does not like to see is any march in public, because it shows that they are completely outnumbered. Right. That the dictatorship is a tiny clique of parasites, and that the people are greater than they are. So they do everything they can to immediately imprison anyone who goes out and marches.
Don't give up your guns.
Okay. It's okay. Just got a question. I don't know if you guys can answer it or not, but I've been hearing guys, like don't really want to sign the petition. We're getting probably the halfway point. I'm just wondering, is there another focus that we can go there, that if we can tell people if you go into the ballot box, you can vote there? And I'm not sure if anybody can answer that or not, but it's just a thought or something there.
Well, just one thing about the petition. I understand the fears people have, but this would be, you would need some kind of Tiananmen Square massacre to take on 500,000 Albertans and bring them down. That's what Angela's talking about. That's a huge number of people to target. So I don't see the petition as particularly targetable. And as Jason said, it's going to just Elections Alberta, not to the federal government.
I know that there are people that are hesitant to go stand in line up or to be out in public and signing it too. So I know that on the Stay Free Alberta website, you can actually click the button to request a canvasser to come to you if you would like, if that's your preference, if that would make it better. Yeah, and there's the whole list of places on there where there's all the permanent locations.
Okay, so we have a young question here for you.
If we win the referendum, do we instantly become a country, or do we need to do some other thing to guarantee that?
That's a super great question. Thank you for asking that. So the way that we're following it right now is through the legal process that Canada has for a province to leave Canada. And we're following the Clarity Act. When we have a yes vote to the referendum on October 19th, 2026, then we enter into the negotiation phase where all the groups, the Canadian government especially, have to come to the table to negotiate our secession in good faith. So that would be the next step. There is proposals being put forward that we can shorten those negotiations by being prepared ahead of time and maybe putting a timeline on those so that they don't drag out, as a government would tend to want to do. And shortly after that, then we can declare our sovereignty and would be a sovereign nation. So it's really, it may not be nearly the lengthy process that some people have in their heads. It could actually be something quick and decisive.
Thanks. So I've been asked this is one of the most common questions that I get once in a while. We're going to have an Alberta passport. Do we lose our Canadian passport? And if it is defined as dual citizenship, if we have both. And I do want to say, I'm a loudmouth. I've never been afraid of anything, and I'm sure as hell not afraid now. So you need to grab these people by the throat and say, get your butt out, and stand up. We are getting killed sitting behind closed doors. We are dying. And I will die on this ship. I will go down with Alberta. But I will never, ever quit fighting. Unfortunately, I do have to take the odd break because I'm old. But you need to grab people and say, come on, you guys. I've said to friends, I'm one person. Bring some more. We look like a crowd. Exactly what Tanya, I can't remember your name. Angela. I wanted to call you Tanya, but I know that's Tanya. I can't get some of my family out. Well, my immediate family is fine, but my brothers and sisters, etc. And I don't know why, but I've never been afraid of anybody, and I've always, always said my piece. And people need to stand up. I'm not a fighter in your face, but yeah, I travel with the fighter.
God bless you for that. So the first question was the passport.
10% of Canadians have dual citizenship right now. So, and the most common dual citizenship is American. The Canadian law, if the Canadian law says that everybody in here in an independent Alberta will have a dual citizenship. You all keep your Canadian passport, and then you'll get a brand new Alberta one. Alberta could do something different and could decide to not recognize dual citizenship, but I doubt they'll do that. So no, you'll have dual citizenship, and you'll collect. Actually, the best part, I like to think that this could happen. I will collect an Alberta pension. I'll also collect a Quebec pension because I worked in Quebec for 3 years, and they have their own pension plan. So I will collect a Quebec pension, and I qualify for OAS. So the government in Ottawa will still owe me my OAS. So I think I'm looking forward to that day.
And that actually touches on another question that comes up a lot is the CPP, the pension plan, and OAS. So as you just said there, that would continue. You don't have to live in Canada to collect that. And that would include living in Alberta. If it's a new nation, you wouldn't have to be in Canada to collect that. But there's still some paths there. Alberta could replace it. It could be a double pension. Alberta can have their own. Canada can have one. There's a bunch of paths forward. But what we do know is Alberta can't leave the CPP unless it provides something that's better or the same or better. So there's some paths forward for the CPP as well. Anybody want to touch on that?
I just think that's an important point to make, Jason, because a lot of people are concerned about that constitutionally Alberta has to offer of equal or better generosity a pension plan for anyone leaving, and Alberta would be well resourced to manage that in a more prudent manner than Ottawa.
I'll correct you. That would be if Alberta wants to do its own pension plan today, it would have to be equal to the CPP. But if we become an independent country, we can do whatever kind of pension we want.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Yeah.
And I'd like to just add, there's nothing radical about that because, as you heard, Quebec has their own as well. So within Canada, there's a province that does their own.
So my question is, would it be advantageous for us as a group or as these different groups to have the Indigenous people to come, to be invited and present themselves here as well? Because I think all they need is an invitation for them to come. And just to put it out to the general public, I don't think it'll just work that way. I mean, I'm Indigenous, so is Randy here, and but we're originally from Saskatchewan. But I think it would be very advantageous for us as a podcaster to invite, however that would be, to invite the chiefs. The chief that went to England there, Chief Joey from Sunchild. Let's invite these guys. I mean, if they turn us down, it's no big deal. But they're not representing the whole nation. We know that. I know that. So, would it be advantageous? Bring them and do an invitation for that.
I'll tackle that one quick. Yeah. I have many times. The Chiefs don't want to come out and talk. Leighton Gray came out and he gave us a great speech, and it's on my channel. He's been on quite a few times. Yeah. He started off his speech with his Indian number, so he laid out his number. And you guys are examples of what we're seeing everywhere. First Nations people are signing It's the chiefs who are going on TV, going to England, going to legislature, going to the courts, and saying we don't want this. But the people are showing up because they want self-determination. They want the same thing we all want in this room, which is to break free from Ottawa, do our own thing, have inheritance, pass on our land, own our property. We all want the same thing. But I have been trying. So if Chief Joey, if you know his number, hook me up. Because I've been trying.
You should.
Yeah, and Leighton Gray, I spoke to him and some other people. We're going to try and go to reservations and have those conversations, or bring them here. But we've been seeing at the signing locations, for example, the Blood Tribe showed up at one of the signing locations. There was 12 protesters, but many more signed right in front of the protesters. So people want self-determination in Canada or in Alberta, no matter what your background was.
Yeah, because they're ignorant. They don't know. They just figure they're going to lose their treaty rights. You know, and that's not true. You know, and that's what they're afraid of. That's what they've been hearing. I talked to a lot of them too, and this is what they're afraid of. Oh, I'm going to lose my treaties and da 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 and all this stuff. No, actually, it's going to be a better system from what I see.
Yeah. Well, there's three paths. Sorry, I'll just finish this and I'll pass it to Fergus. There's three paths forward. You can continue to be administered by Canada. You can be administered by Alberta, or you can be administered by yourself. Those will be the three paths forward, and it would require renegotiations, sure, but those would be the three options. You want to be administered by Ottawa, by Edmonton, or yourself. Those would be the three choices.
What's your name, sir?
John Alvin, Rainville.
Thank you.
My grandfather's from Quebec, so.
Okay,
so
sure.
Mixture.
No, yeah.
Métis.
John, thanks so much for your comment. Now, I just want to talk a little bit of strategy here, okay? And Angela referenced this a little bit at another meeting. We have a variety of, let's say, people who are more or less open to this idea. And let's say a quarter of Albertans, they basically hate this, okay? I would not expend any resources on people who hate it. So the chiefs, the ones who've gone to England, they're just outright enemies. I don't see any opportunity there. But the people themselves, great. So the effort really has to be focused on, energizing the people who support it and those who are on the fence. And I don't want to waste time getting into some kind of shouting match with people who are against us. Yeah.
So yeah, I live right next to the Blood. I have a house in Cardston that's literally a block and a half from Moses Lake, so it's right there. And yes, when we had our big signing event, the very first person to arrive, he arrived 45 minutes early. He was First Nations, and he said, "Where do I sign?" It's like, okay, hang on, let's grab somebody. And yeah, we had some protesters. I immediately approached them and said, "I'm so glad you guys are here. Like, let's all have our voices heard. You're welcome here." And it kind of threw them back a little bit. So, like, I have a lunch date next week with Dana Tailfeathers, who put it out there online and said, "I just want to be able to talk to somebody and get some information and also to have my concerns heard." That's going to be a one-on-one meeting, right? It's just like Fergus said, like, I wouldn't approach the Blood Chief and Council at all just because of what they have put out there publicly. We know where they stand. But all of our friends and neighbors that we can reach out to individually, again, I think that's where the game's going to be won.
Yeah, so thank you, all of you, for all your hard work in tonight's talks. I think my question is going up to October 19th, and I just sort of feel like I would like a little bit of assurance about having a safe and fair election. I think we've all just experienced so much in our election day and the big letdown. And so I don't know, maybe this isn't even your area to speak about it. And I know that there'll be elections, Alberta, with their different things that they have in place, but is there anything that we know that we will have a fair election?
Well, Keith Wilson did mention last night, and I don't know if this was part of his speech, so if it got online or not, but where there will be scrutineers at each polling station. So we will have people in place to supervise the counting of the votes. And that's always been the safeguard, right? With every type of election, every candidate has the opportunity to have a scrutineer there and to watch, and it will be the same way with this one.
I'll add this. I'll give Elections Alberta is not my favorite group. In fact, right now they don't even want us to talk about them on social media and platforms like that because we're following their rules. But it's something I look at closely are the results of elections, and I look at them from a statistical point of view. I like to dump the data and analyze it, and I will say this about Alberta. Our elections are pretty good. Like, I feel pretty confident about the elections, and you saw what Danielle did. We're getting rid of the Dominion machines and things like that. So The last time you'll ever hear me say something nice about elections in Alberta. They do run a pretty good election. I've looked at the elections in BC. That's a fiasco. I've looked at the election data from Quebec. It's a fiasco. And don't get me started on the federal ones. There's so many anomalies. But luckily here in Alberta, we're pretty good.
And I'll add Bill 54 required ID. You couldn't use your post office box for the signature period. Those were some of the changes. It's been locked down a little bit more. So I think it's going to be a lot more safe.
Hey, what is the British interest in this affair?
Give more context. Like, what are you worried about?
Well, we have quite a bit of wealth in our natural resources, and they have historically controlled the country. So, I like to think we're independent of them, but they're involved in our day-to-day. I mean, they're in our government and such. So what is the implications there? Like, are they just going to say, okay, you're good to go, or what do you know about that?
This is just my speculation that largely the Commonwealth nations are members or under the monarchy by consent at this point. That there's no will to send out the military, to stop portions leaving. And there's been a gradual lessening of British influence over the years as well, right? So I'm not so familiar with the Canadian case, but in New Zealand, our highest court is no longer the Privy Council, and they didn't go and fight us to stop that from happening. They were happy to let us have that autonomy.
Actually, and closer to home, Quebec removed the crown from its coat of arms late last year. So yeah, the monarchy's grasp on Canada's weakening.
And recently, Jamaica left the Commonwealth through legislation. They just passed it. So it's a different time. There's no more muskets around. So they don't do that anymore. But I think they're going to do something differently. Global level, they're going to make things difficult. Maybe some trade. They might interfere there. Maybe you'll see Canada, retaliate a little bit. Maybe some of those things will happen. But you won't see redcoats showing up at our door trying to stop us, I don't think.
Yeah, we may not see the redcoats, but I think we need to be very honest with ourselves and realistic with the situation that we're in right now. We're sitting on the world's third largest reserves for a product that is needed and wanted all around the world. They're not just going to let us walk away with it. We have to be prepared for that. And just in like my short little experience with the Wild Rose Independence Party and seeing what they do to, or what they have done to the independence movement in Alberta over the last 40 and 50 years, go ahead and read Michael Wagner, go ahead and read Corey Morgan's book, and you will see the efforts that have been put in. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, they are very good. They know exactly what they're doing. They have had people in place for 40 years that just come in and make sure that that movement never gets off the ground. Now we're off the ground. Now we're looking at something else. We're looking at moving forward in the next step. There will be opposition, whether it's from the Crown, whether it's from, you name it. And we just need to be prepared for that.
Yeah, they may go from elbows up to sticks out. We'll see. But having good partners and good relationships with a large country that wants to work with us would be a good start. I think some of those conversations started. It's not foreign interference or being a traitor, but having conversations about our future if we get there. So I think some things are already in motion that will make things a little bit clearer on a global stage, that we have our independence, and that will be accepted, at least starting from some countries. We'll get that started. But yeah, watch out for the Sticks Out campaign. Trademark, I should do the t-shirt. Any more questions? Yeah.
More opposition that comes, talking to people. Oh, the U.S. is just going to take us over. It's only a matter of time. Hear it all the time.
Well, they're having trouble taking over anything right now. But anyways.
Yeah. I just don't see that happening. There's no need for the United States to take over Alberta, right? They would be such a friendly ally. Why would they want to do that? And the truth is, too, that people think Trump has these imperialist ambitions or whatever. The fact is he's going to lose his majorities in a few months. So it's really a short period of time that he'll be in office. And that's one reason why I've spoken that I'm strongly against the 51st state idea, because you'll basically just replicate the same problem with even less influence.
And
So
currently we are an energy exporter, so we could keep our lights on without any deals on the table. So we certainly would be negotiating and working on trade.
and keep in mind that if you think getting out of Canada is difficult, try getting out of the United States. Yeah, I mean, there's no legal path to getting out of the United States. Okay, it would have to be mass civil disobedience, basically. Yeah, so that fought a war between the states about it. You know, so it's tricky.
Do we have any more questions? One more here? Yeah, come in.
Do any of you have an idea what would happen with CFB Suffield? There's primarily British forces that are there. I'm not sure if it's owned by British or just leased to them.
I think they train there.
It would be part of the negotiations, right? So that's the basically we would want to buy certain assets that belong to Ottawa. So the military bases, the odd passport office, border security, things like that. So that's what that would happen there. We'd buy those assets. And by the way, the British don't use Suffield anymore. They stopped using Suffield about 5 years ago.
I just want to thank you all for sharing your voices and expressing ours. So a lot of what you say and a lot of what your expertise is a lot of how we feel. We just don't know how to express that well, and you're all very well spoken, and I'm deeply grateful for all of you.
Thank you.
So that reminds me of a quote from a modern philosopher that just came to mind. Madonna, express yourself. So I have one more question for the panel, if we're good, from the audience. Yeah, okay. What was your turning point? When did you know that Alberta independence was the only path forward? Start with Fergus.
Well, my turning point was when I went to a conservative conference in Ottawa, and I realized that they were all defending equalization and supply management. And I realized that Canada was stuck, and I wasn't even really aware of Alberta independence at the time, but I realized that someone has to break out of this.
I was very much like a lot of folks. It was COVID, and because I didn't have any work, I had a lot of time to scroll around online and learn things. So, yeah, COVID.
For me, it was a project. It was the energy pipeline. We spent $1 million a day. We tallied up about $1 billion of engineering. An application that was about 6 feet tall. We jumped through every hoop, and they kept changing the goalpost. And then finally, the project basically died. We couldn't go ahead with it anymore. We killed it ourselves. It's not the government that did it. We abandoned. And I was in Quebec at the time, and I literally heard a collective cheer from the people of Quebec and people of Ontario. They were happy that they had defeated Alberta. We can't have anything nice here, and that's when I realized that we can't have anything nice, and that was really the nail in the coffin for me.
Yeah, Jason asked us this, and I keep reflecting on it each night. And actually, I feel like I have like a lot of regret that I didn't arrive at this sooner, because I speak about how I think I was almost born with a libertarian heart, and being farming and just immersed in the land and the lifestyle that we led. I fully believe that the rest of Canada was just like us, that they thought like us and they worked hard like us and had the same mentality. So then as I grew up and started realizing, oh, my world's a little bit bigger now and not everyone is like us. And obviously COVID was a huge eye-opener when I learned that we were not allowed to ask questions. And then the convoy rallied, and the biggest freedom movement in like the world's history entered into Ottawa to speak to our government, and they wouldn't listen. So then I was like, okay, well, we can't ask questions, and they're not gonna listen. And then we had the lead up to the last federal election, and I worked on a federal campaign for the Conservatives, and we had like the momentum and the rallies and the frenzy of Pierre Poilievre, and like this was our moment that we were going to maybe have a voice out west, even though I knew full well that he couldn't do the constitutional changes that I was hoping that we would get one day. But then they lost the election. And so all those compounding things, like you have to draw a line somewhere that I'm not willing to let it slide and go further down the path that Canada is anymore. I want out of this, and I want better for Albertans. I want the life that I grew up with, and I want that for my kids.
Would anybody like to share their moment where they decided this is enough? We had some people share last night, and it was 40 plus years ago when she was a young girl, when she saw Trudeau Senior do things like flip off the West, and she knew that that wasn't right, so been waiting for 40 years. Go ahead.
Mine's short and sweet, when they tried to put masks on my kids.
Yep, government overreach. Yep.
And mine was back in 1975 when I was working for engineers, and they were going to pay for my education to be an engineer. And Trudeau came along and destroyed our oil industry, and I lost my job and my education.
A lot of people woke up then too. I was 2 years later. I was born. Anybody here want to share? Over here? I know you speak a lot, so I'm just going to come to you. When was the time that you knew it was time to stand up and maybe leave?
Maybe leave? Oh, we're definitely leaving. Mine was 80 some years ago in Senior Trudeau. I mean, we could see it coming. And I had 4 kids, and I wanted out quick. And we knew it wasn't going to happen quick. I never thought I'd ever see a referendum. Love it. And COVID. COVID, I was not afraid of COVID. I thought it was bullshit that all of a sudden we have a vaccine that was worldwide killing everybody. And people bought into it. I've never been a complier, as you can well imagine. And yeah, when they mandated it, then I really dug my heels in. Because I felt so sorry for the young folks that were actually tied into payments. I was retired. And they felt they had no choice. And to me, that was communism. Like, it was communism. I put into my body what I want. Nobody tells me. So I've always stood up. But yeah, it's Senior Trudeau, long, long time ago. That was in the 80s, so yeah.
Yeah, and for me it was the election, because that's when I realized that Canada didn't think like us. And the Uniparty was stronger than ever. And I didn't think there was a way to get out of it, because the election was over before we even started opening up our ballot boxes. So even if you voted for Carney, he didn't need your vote. And most of you voted for Pierre, and he couldn't cross the finish line, even in his own riding. So at that point, I knew Canada was kind of lost. They're not going to wake up. And that's when I made my decision.
I was very disillusioned during COVID when I was being pressured to take the shot by family, friends, doctors, nurses, because I was in the hospital at that time, and I was forced to take one shot. Well, I wasn't forced, but I was definitely pressured and told that I should do it. Then also, during COVID, my husband drove school bus, and I was a substitute teacher, and I still am. And we had to, in order to keep our jobs, we had to do a COVID test every Sunday night and stick a Q-tip up our nose and take a picture of it to take this test just to keep our job.
Yeah, government overreach for sure.
So my enlightenment came when I went to Ottawa in 22 with the truckers convoy. I was there and had my bank account closed and shut up there. But here's, I had a really powerful spiritual experience in Ottawa. I mean, that place was just filled with truckers and there was all kinds of people, but we were all there for one purpose. So we had no judgments about anybody, you know, and so that's, I feel that was a big change in my life, and to stand up for the nation of, well, for Alberta anyway, and the truckers, because what they were pushing on us was not good. I've had my nephew's ex-wife took the vax on a Thursday. Sunday morning she was dead. She's 39 years old, and natural causes. Yeah, not a chance. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. Anybody else want to share there? Yeah. I like his term better, the enlightenment. When were you enlightened?
You guys, the first 59 years of my life, I was basically, I was the perfect Canadian male that the government would love. I was a little bit of a pussy, just kind of thinking, man, why would the government ever harm us? Like, we always kind of trusted them, whatever. I grew up in an oil field family in Little Silver Lake, we're trailer park trash, actually, and growing up in trailer park in the 70s, and seeing Pierre. I was 12 at the time, and Pierre kind of coming through, and we'd all see the bumper stickers on the back. When there used to be bumpers on the back of vehicles, there would be the finger. And anyways, during with the COVID stuff, and you guys not kind of, I think it was kind of nervous for a couple weeks, and then it didn't really kind of make sense. And I found my little tribe. We kind of doing rallies here in Red Deer, and for a couple years, and then the convoy was happening, and many of us knew people going to Ottawa. And at that time, I had a welding business, so I had to stick around here. But I think during that time, we probably did six, 7 convoys. We'd be doing rallies at the corner by Home Depot, big busy corner. And I have 5 big signs. I kind of dream if there's no welding. We're workers as Albertans, you guys know that. And so we'd go do whatever and helping our buddies that are renovating. So wherever there's a big door or a big chunk of wood, I take it home, and that's kind of, I can't even believe I was doing this, because I'm the little laid back. I can't imagine I'm doing this talking to you guys. I love one-on-one, but we just kind of do whatever. And if I can share something that will kind of make a difference, I'm not sure in you, but so I'd be having signs, honk for freedom, and I'd be building stands. And us welders were not the smartest, but we know how to screw wood together and what have you. So building stands and honk for freedom and think, and freedom isn't given, it's won, and facts over fear. I can't remember some of the, but I had about 5, 6. So we'd load those up, and we'd do our rallies for a couple hours. And I got a truck, and being a welder, we can make pretty long flag poles out of our hitch. So I don't know if, being I had the biggest flag, I was leading the convoy, I guess. I can't imagine. But anyway, sometimes we'd have 40, 50, 60 vehicles going through town, and you guess it was so exciting, the honking. And man, it just kind of warmed my heart. And then we get the finger, and then kind of while we're at the rallies, you guys are Nazis. I'm thinking, I think we're trying to keep you from them, actually. And you guys, so I was my thing was, and us welders are kind of solos. We're kind of like golfers. Just leave us alone and let us do our work, and we'll try to do our best job that we can. So I had a nice Canadian flag and a fairly high telescope pole that I'd be waving, and you guys, we've got a number of Olympic Canada jerseys, because we're like, hockey is still our sport, I guess. But anyway, so I'd be dressed up in it will seem like I'd switch them out or whatever, just to kind of keep the everybody confused. No, that's not right. But anyways, we'd be waving, and so I'm kind of Mr. Canada at the corner by my honk for freedom, and I just totally love that. So now, anyways, 5 years later, we've got all those kind of flags changed to Alberta flags. And you guys, last week I had a chance to meet Jason. I had my little 6-year-old grandson. We did a convoy. It was beautiful. And I'm no longer a welder because the COVID thing, and thinking, no way, that's all right. If you don't harm me, that's totally fine. We're going to find something to do. So I started a little yard care business, best thing I've ever done the last 3, 4 years. And so we don't want to hand out. You guys, we're going to go find something to do. And now we got a bunch of grandkids, like a bunch of you guys do, and great-grandkids. So you guys, that just puts a little bit more pea in our vinegar. Is that the right, how you say that? Or something like that. But anyways, you guys, so there's many events going on, and Jason, I appreciate you guys. And to take time away from your families and what have you, we got it easy. We just got to sit down and kind of do up. I got some signs made up. Have you signed yet? And do my little canvassing in town, and I worked for so many seniors, so I'm to their doors, signing them up, and Marty, you are awesome. I think I got maybe 150, 160 signatures, so I got to step up my game. Man, so you guys, I don't know, I know a couple of you guys, but I totally love you guys. Because you know what you're doing, you're standing up for my grandkids, I'm standing up for yours, and you guys, we're gonna do this, and we're locking arms, right? Man, you guys, sorry about that, shoot.
Bathsheba, we got one of those heroes right here. One of those heroes right here. Making those signs, using your skills, doing whatever you could, and fighting for Canada until you couldn't anymore, and then now you're fighting for Alberta. God bless you. Appreciate you a lot. Any last ones? We got one right here. Big smile over here, too. Are you a welder? Oh, okay.
Well, so I'm a graphic designer, but, you know, I can't help but laughing, actually, right around the time that we all lost our jobs. I was unemployed for 2 months, and then they brought me back on, but they made me do those stupid 6 feet apart sign. That was so degrading to me, degrading, whatever, but... actually, they're like, okay, do you want your job back? Okay, I got my job back to be laying on the floor at Bauer Mall when the malls were closed for 3 months. I was a designer, not a stick it on the floor girl. But anyway, we desperately need the money, so I put the signage all over the floor. 3 months later, I got laid off. But I'm self-employed now, and that's not the point of the whole story. I just want to say everybody here is a winner and a trooper for showing up, standing up, and that's all we need to do. Continue to stand up. I wish we could target some of the younger generations. I know high school kids, college kids. I didn't care much about politics. I grew up in Montreal. All I can remember is fighting Christmas parties with Pierre Elliott and this and Trudeau. That I hated politics. But if I could go back in time and just influence some of those younger generations, everybody needs to wake up and think straight.
You'd be happy to know there's several younger people that showed up even last night, and they were sharing why they're concerned and why they want to move forward. Who knows what the average first-time home buyer age was just over 20 years ago? 24. What is it today? 44. So now it takes 20 years to save up your down payment to get your first home, when that would have been your mortgage back just 20 years ago. So the young people know. They can't leave home, they can't build their houses, they can't start their families, they know.
So I just want to let you know the young kids are coming out. I signed the youngest 18-year-old. She turned 18 today. So they are coming out, and they're letting their friends know, because I've signed a few of them. So they are there.
Yeah, we're getting all demographics. Don't listen to the news. Yeah, they're absolutely lying. We're getting everybody. Yep. All right, are we good? Anyone else want to share their enlightenment story? I'm going to steal your term now. You're all good? Well, I want to thank my wife and my kids for allowing me to do this. Stop me. They're trying to stop me. My wife and my kids back there, they are the ones out on the road with me. They're not always on the road with me, so I miss them dearly, but we couldn't do this without their support. I would also like to thank Max from freedomcalendar.net. How many viewers?
345 viewers.
Oh, right on. So we got about 3 or 4 times more people online that was in here tonight. So we are reaching more people. So go ahead and share that out.
Yeah. And in regards to the younger folks saying, oh, we need to get the news of the younger folks out there, I can tell you right off the bat that a lot of people who are watching, who are on the under 25 strata, which is basically my age category, they're not watching, they're not coming here, but they come, they basically represent 10 or 20 more people watching. So it's not because they're not here, they're not represented. Most people, most of them, they have little kiddos, they have jobs and everything. They don't have the mental capacity or the energy to attend a town hall meeting, but they will watch the live stream the next day. Just FYI.
And thank you very much to our speakers, Fergus. Yeah, he'll turn you on. Yeah, all these videos are available. You can share them out. It's on Facebook, X, YouTube as well, Rumble, I believe as well. So thank you to Fergus. Angela, Marty, and Tanya. And thank you to all of you for coming out tonight. We really appreciate you all. Love you all very much, and God bless.
Don't worry too much about the microphones. I'll pick them up. Yeah. Don't break it. So, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in Saturday and Sunday. So Saturday will be in Edmonton at the Cameron Center, and Sunday will be at the Morinville Community Center. So see you there, and up until now, cherry ups. Thanks for tuning in.